In this video, I'm going to review how I grade the case studies. So if you notice in assignments, you'll see these case studies in here where I address them to you as a financial analyst employee, and I'll ask you a series of questions and expect you to write an executive summary. So things I look for is, number one, I put together a little table here with some comments. First one is appearance and format. So if you look at this, I'm looking to make sure your work looks good and that the correct format is used for all information, percents, currencies, etc. So appearance and format. So if I go over to a case study and you hand in something like this, I'll say that this is poor appearance and format because first of all, we have various amounts of money here, saying retail, a few columns here that should be formatted in currency. And if the currency typically is going to be a large number, we should round off the change to optimize the cell width. Also, if you have a spreadsheet and all the cells are formatted like this, that's another bad spreadsheet, waste of space. So I'm going to click like that. So over here we have two columns that should be formatted as percent. Here's another column that should be formatted as currency. Now make sure you use currency, not accounting. So in here you'll see that they'll have, if you click this button here, it puts in the accounting format. So it looks very poor to have the dollar sign over here and then the money over here. So you want to use, this is not an accounting class, so you want to use currency. Okay, so for units, we could separate them, take out the zeros. So here's, so now we have the sheet looking better. We have some really poor use of coloring, so let's take that coloring out. Okay, so this would be a better appearance overall as things being formatted properly, the column widths being a little bit better. Okay, so moving on to print ranges. Looking to make sure the print ranges are set up and layout on print preview looks good, header and footers are expected. Okay, so when you come up with a page here, you would want to highlight the area, go to page layout, set print area, go to page setup, and you can set portrait or landscape. I think here we can see that this dashed line is showing me that half of it's going to spill over. So I'm going to shrink the size of it. Let me just hit OK here. And we'll see that when we go back to the page setup, that dashed line here is now gone. It means everything is fitting. So if I do go to, there is a page layout format here I could go to, which will show me what it would look like per page. So if you notice here are the titles. If you scroll down, they're missing on the other pages, so you don't know what you're looking at. So that would be bad. So you would go and set up, you can adjust the margins as needed if you'd like. That helps things fit a little bit better. The header and footer, so I could set up in the header, I'll set up the name of the document. In the footer, I'll put confidential and the page number. And then in the sheet, this is where I'm going to say rows to repeat at the top. So here I could select a row or two that I want to repeat at the top. I'll hit OK. And now when I scroll down, you see that those header rows and the header and footer are all in place here. So that's what I'm looking for. All right. So actually I can see that the header is behind the data here. So I'm going to go and adjust the margins and put this back up to 1 inch. And now you can see the header is clearly there. So this is what I'm looking for when I say print ranges. 2, titles and charts. So over here, titles for all rows are correct. Single row, frozen, panes are frozen. Your data should be summarized and detailed using charts and graphs. A copy should be placed in the executive summary page. Okay, so what we're talking about here, let's go back to the normal grid view. You should never have double rows for titles. This is just lazy and inappropriate. Because if I go to sort, if I was going to go to sort this data, I have 2 rows that are named costs. Because I can't sort on, there's just not going to be a smart way of doing this. I have 2 rows named gross percent. So what you need to do is pick a row and then clean up. Let me go to view and I'll put on the formula bar. So here you need to clean up. So you should never have double rows, or, and I can see why they put a double row here is because they wanted to make the column smaller, which is a good idea, but you don't do it with double or triple rows. It's just bad work. So I'm going to put in each of the titles. You have to go in. There's other ways of doing this. You can combine them, but I'm just going to type them in just because it's a little bit faster. Retail and wholesale. Okay, so now I've rewritten, I'm going to delete this top row. And now it does look poor, but what I can do is, since I know Excel, I can go to Home and I can say wrap text, and I'm going to center, and then let me put some formatting, maybe shade it with a light color. So these titles look a lot better, and if I do want to respace them a little bit, I can shrink the columns even more now that I have that wrap text on, and it's just dynamic wrapping. So this looks a lot better. And then I always want to freeze the top row. So that way when I'm paging down, that top row is always there. So it looks a lot better now. Okay. Now as far as making charts, where appropriate, you should make charts that are going to help in telling the story of what you're doing. So for this particular file, we'll get to charts later, but charts are something that should be included, and any chart you make on any of the various pages should always be moved to executive summary. An executive summary should always be created and moved to the front of the document and named executive sum or executive summary or just summary. It should always be the first document. The first worksheet in the workbook should be executive summary. I will take points off of that. Okay, moving on to total subtotals. So here, making sure your data has totals at the top of the page and subtotals are used where needed. So this basically means that your totals should not be at the very bottom down here. That's not going to help. A lot of people don't know how to even quickly get to the bottom of the page. So all totals should be at the top. So let me show you how to make some quick totals here. So I'm going to use, let's see, total cost. First, let me just finish off. That would be times units. I'm just going to put the cost in here. And okay. And if you notice, if I click the whole spreadsheet and I just if I click the spreadsheet and I grab everything, I could do this double click here, automatically resizes the rows. So if the rows were kind of spaced out and you want to quickly smart size them, just go between the A and the B, double click, and it'll smart size the rows. Okay. Then you may want to adjust as you feel needed. I think this is better. Okay. If I'm going to do a retail percent, I'm going to take the retail minus wholesale per unit divided by retail. So this will give me my retail gross percentage, or the percentage of profits the retailer is making. I'm just doing this to kind of finish out the spreadsheet, and the wholesale would be the wholesale per unit minus the standard cost divided by the wholesale per unit. And this gives us a wholesale profit margin. Okay. And I can open these up one digit. So here's the retail gross profit margin and the wholesale. And when this white plus turns into a black plus, I can double click and move those down. So now I have my fields filled in. So I'm going to create my totals. So I would want a total on my total cost, my wholesale dollars, and this should be renamed total. This is the total wholesale dollars. No, this is spelled wrong here, so you're going to make sure your spelling is correct. And total sales units. So this is a per unit, so I don't really need to Per units, I don't need to, there's no point in subtotaling a per unit. I just want to subtotal the total cost, total wholesale, total sale, total unit sales. And I notice here that there is no total retail. So this doesn't kind of make sense. There's another thing about the logic of how something should have a logical order. So a more logical order here would be if I have retail, insert, then I should have wholesale per unit. So I have my, do that. The wholesale per unit would be my wholesale divided by units, give me my wholesale per unit. So this column should really be over here. So I have my retail per unit, my wholesale per unit, and standard cost, and I'll relabel this per unit. So then I should have also, following a logical order, so here I should have, since I have retail per unit, wholesale per unit, standard cost per unit, I should create total retail, total wholesale, like that. I can simply just take the per unit multiplied by the number of sales units, and wholesale would be the wholesale per unit times the number of sales units. And I'm going to copy this down. So now I'm going to delete, this is out of order here, let me delete that. And we see all my formulas are broken now. Undo. Oh, I got a circular reference. Okay, so now it makes a little bit more sense. I have retail, wholesale, standard cost per unit, and I have retail, total wholesale, and total cost. So I'm going to give this a slightly different font here. All right, so now we have total unit sales, and then we're going to calculate, we already have the wholesale price per unit, so we can delete that. And we just have to redo the gross, and we see here that the formula got a little messed up because I moved things around. So what I need to put here is the C3. Enter there, and here I need to enter C3 and C3. Okay, because I kind of moved them out of order, so let me just scroll it down. Okay, so this makes more logical sense now. We have, I'm going to change the color here. Okay, so we have the product, retail per unit, wholesale per unit, cost per unit, total retail, total wholesale, total costs, total unit sales, retail and wholesale gross percentage. So that makes more sense. So if I'm going to do the totals, I don't need to ever total a per unit because it makes no sense to total the per units. So starting here is going to put my first total. So I'm going to use the sum formula, and I'm just going to highlight, use my quick keys to get to the bottom of the spreadsheet, press enter, and now I have the total here. Open it up, and I could just pull this across. And when it comes to gross percent and wholesale, I'm not going to total the column because that would mean nothing. But I could take these formulas here and move them up. Nope, that doesn't work. I got to redo these formulas. So I would take retail minus wholesale divided by retail, and here I would take wholesale minus cost divided by wholesale, and I just need to put some parentheses here. And this would be my weighted average of wholesale and retail gross profit percent. Okay, so whenever you have a total row, you should always format it with these bottom double border. So this signifies this is a total. You could also, if you wanted to, some people do this, I'm fine with it. If you want to merge a cell and write totals, and then you can align it left like that. I don't suggest doing that because it could make it difficult to sort or do other things later. So I don't necessarily recommend that. So I'm going to unmerge those cells. And you can just leave it with this double border because that is universally known as a subtotal. Okay. So that's how we do our totals. Now you could also, this is not part of the freeze rows, but you can freeze panes or freeze multiple rows or columns if you wanted to, depending if you want to see that total on every row. Okay, moving on to efficiency. So efficiency here is down here. The spreadsheet should use the best method to make the work efficient. The main goal is for every cell to update when changes are made in the data. It's called dynamic efficiency. If the spreadsheet is inefficient, not put together in logical order, points will be lost there. So that's sort of why I reorganized this. So it just flows more logically. Retail sales per unit, wholesale price, retail price per unit, wholesale price per unit, standard cost per unit, and then total retail, total wholesale, total cost, total units. So it just makes more logical sense to have, and you should always, if I'm going to have retail in front of wholesale, I should follow that formatting. So this is just more efficient, a better layout, smarter. Now, and the subtotal here, so if any number changes in here, this number will change. So for example, if this retail goes up to 10, you'll notice that this changes, that changes. So it's all dynamic. So if I change one cell, everything else is going to flow from that. And if I make a chart or do anything, if I'm going to take these totals here to another page, I would, so say for example, I wanted to make a spreadsheet over here that would total up the data. I would simply hit the equals key, go to the sheet, select the cell, and then I would just quickly bring that down, across, down. So now these are dynamically linked. I can even go back, let me highlight this area. I can choose paintbrush, and then bring those formats over. So now, since these are linked, if I change anything over here, to make this 1500 or 15,000, you'll see these numbers go up to 27 here, so over here, oops, you see it's dynamically linked, so this goes up. And if I were to change this back, this drops. See 27, let me make this even bigger. We got a couple more zeros here. Okay, so that goes 147 million. Over here, 147 million. So if I change that back, 27, that's what we call dynamic. So it's just efficient. And, okay, efficiency. So whenever you're making your spreadsheet, you don't want to waste space, you don't want to waste time or formulas, you want to make everything flow logically. Okay, so now we get into the executive summary introduction. So the introduction here, I say an overview of what your task is. What are you trying to do? All Excel work should be described here. A detailed narrative explaining how you use Excel to organize the data. So this would just be an introduction to what the case is about. Say the executive summary, you should open up and we'll insert a text box. See that? I'm going to insert a text box here. And we should use the memo format too. Generally CFO, from, your name, subject. All right. And then let's, just like in Word, you can manipulate the size of the font here. And then you should have introduction, financial, I spelled that wrong on purpose. And the reason I spelled that wrong is because I wanted to show you that there is a review here where you can do a spell check. And you should always do a spell check to make sure that there are no spelling errors. Okay, so all those are cleaned up. So spelling errors will be bad and points will be taken off. It's just sloppy. Okay, so all of these sections on the executive summary should be pretty well thought out and pretty well planned out. And you can see if you go to the Blackboard, I'll have a menu button. I'll say student examples. So you can do examples of A-level executive summaries, B-level grades, and C-level executive summaries. So the proper formatting after you write up the introduction, financial analysis, recommendation is to place all your charts and tables below. So it just kind of scrolls and makes it easier to also to set up a print range. Yes, you should also print range this executive summary page. All right, back here. So that's the introduction, financial analysis. Looking for detailed analysis of the financial data. I want an explanation of what you're trying to solve, what did you uncover, looking for you to draw conclusions, make intelligent connections, provide data. If you're going to include charts or graphs, you should label them chart 1, chart 2, graph 1, graph 2, and then refer back to them. So you could be talking, it should be in a paragraph essay format when you're writing this out. And then the recommendation would be your data should be summarized, recommendations developed, how should this company move forward, what is your advice. Your response should be long and well developed, so you want to give some business or financial advice based on what you uncovered by reorganizing the data of the company. Okay. Then finally, I'd be looking at overall accuracy. Are you getting the same totals and subtotals and conclusions that you should if you calculated the spreadsheet correctly, the case correctly for the data I provide? Then lastly, Excel functions. I'm grading your use of Excel functions to complete the work. I expect your spreadsheet to contain as many Excel functions as possible to help you to quickly analyze and organize the data. So, and these are many things we're going to learn during the course of this class. So that's sort of a layout of what I'm looking for when you are putting together your case. So, okay, so every tab that you're using should have all of these characteristics: formatted properly, print range is set, single row titles, frozen headers. Okay, an executive summary, most importantly, placed at the first position with proper introduction, financial analysis, and recommendation. All right. And you must, every case should have charts and graphs to tell your story. Okay, so moving on, I have this rubric that you can view. Whenever you submit your work, you can view the rubric. And I broke it out into formatting and print ranges, titles, charts, and totals, accuracy and efficiency, executive summary introduction, executive summary financial analysis and recommendation, Excel formulas and functions. So you should see here that as far as your grade, you have the 50% of your grade here is 50% of your grade is the financial analysis and recommendation. That's so critical. So 50% of your grade is on the financial analysis and recommendation, these two parts right here. That's 50% of your grade. So keep that in mind. That's why that needs to be so well developed and so well thought out, because when I'm grading it, you could have done very well in the spreadsheet. And since I help you along a great deal by step-by-step instructions of these spreadsheets, I'm putting most of the grading emphasis on your financial analysis and recommendation. Then we have the next biggest area would be here, which is accuracy and efficiency. And then the other areas, we have 5% at the top for formatting and print ranges. And then the remaining sections are 10%, which would be Excel formulas, introduction, and titles, charts, and totals. Okay, so you could read on this rubric, you could read each of these boxes. I'm going to rate you as either a poor job, a novice, competent. Competent means you kind of did everything you were supposed to do, but it's just not perfect. And then proficient is you've done everything and you've done it in a logical order with the best selection of application possible. So read over this rubric. This is how I'm going to grade. And when I grade you, I'm going to select these different boxes so you'll be able to see exactly where I took points off when you do the case study. Okay, so I also included this other link here, what employers want. But before I do that, let me just show you. Here's the button where it says Excel project examples. So if you click here, I have examples of what an A grade would look like, a B grade, and a C grade. So you want to look over these examples to get an idea of what your financial analysis, recommendation, executive summary should look like. So it's always good to get an example. So lastly, I want to talk about, I put a thing here, what employers want. So the survey was done. I have two surveys here. One is a survey that I conducted here of the top skills requested in finance positions. So what I did here is I put a database together of, I think it was over 500 job positions for financial employees. And then I rated how many times these different words appeared in the job applications and what they were looking for. Number one, in financial jobs, just about every job listed talked about having Excel, being proficient with Excel, being able to macros, charts, formatting, formulas, pivot tables. Next, the next most occurring term was teamwork, good interpersonal skills, solid relationship building. Thirdly was data analytical skills. And this was looking at basically, what we're doing in Excel. A lot of what we're doing is analytical analysis of the data. And this is what part of the executive summary is. Excellent written, verbal, interpersonal communications. Again, the executive summary is checking your written skills, how you're able to write up and express your data analytical skills as far as what you've uncovered with the data. An understanding of application of accounting principles and standards, bank operations, financial markets, and lastly, problem-solving skills. So this is primarily what, in order of most relevant, what they're looking for in an employer. So in this course, you're going to become proficient with Excel. You're going to become proficient with data analysis skills, and then hopefully with how to write up an executive summary. Now also, I put together a list of what graduate recruiters are looking for. So when you graduate, what are recruiters looking for in finance students who are going to potentially hire? Actually, I think it's just business students, not finance students. So what the recruiters are looking for, basic business students are commercial awareness or business acumen, meaning that you know what business is about. You know what a wholesaler is or what a retailer is, how to calculate a profit margin, how businesses make money. So basically, number one, did you pay attention in business school and understand the basics of business and organizations, products and services, and how a company's financial or just a company's data should be organized to tell a story of a company, and how to correctly label and describe the different business elements. Number two, communication. This would be, I guess, written communication, but also listening, or skills that recruiters are looking for. Teamwork, the ability to work in a team, be a team player. Problem solving, being able to get particularly difficult problems like you have in these case studies and to be able to solve them in a logical, analytical way. Leadership, being able to have leadership potential to motivate colleagues. Organization, how to organize, prioritize your work. Perseverance and motivation, not to give up, to keep moving forward, to keep on a task until it's solved. Ability to work under pressure, and confidence. Okay, so these are just some of what employers are looking for. I thought you might find it interesting. It doesn't really have much to do with how I grade the case study, but I figured I'd just throw it in there anyway. So please look this file over, and think about when you're completing these case studies for me to grade, that you're doing everything I'm asking for, because if it's not done, points will be taken off. And the ultimate goal, though, is really just to make your work professional and make your work appear. The better your work appears, the more confident they'll have in your analysis and your ability to put a spreadsheet together. So you don't want to look sloppy or lazy, and you put a lot of work into these spreadsheets, so their appearance goes a long way into how people are going to perceive you. And you also want to make sure that one of the goals of an executive summary is that you're trying to abbreviate all the data, everything that's happening in this gigantic spreadsheet, onto one page, so your boss can quickly get a synopsis of what's happening and so they can decide what decisions they want to make from this data without having to interpret the whole spreadsheet. Okay, thank you for your time. I hope you found this helpful.